Hello and welcome. I am George Schlakig. If you've been following my channel for a while, you may know that one of my most watched and controversial videos is about the Edmonton LRT. An update is well overdue, and this time it's a bit different. More positive, I hope. 15 years after it was first proposed, the Valley Line LRT is finally operational. Construction began in 2016 and the planned opening date was December of 2020. The new line is a public-private collaboration between the City of Edmonton and TransEd, a consortium made up of a handful of private companies. It took almost 3 years more thanks in part to the pandemic, some construction mishaps, and problems with traffic intersections. The Valley Line has low-floor trains and stations are mostly at street level. There are also several intersections where the train runs at street level, adding to the already existing traffic problems. The lack of crossing arms has led to several collisions with automobiles during the early stages of the testing phase, casting doubt on this new concept. However, the elevated sections of the line also had their share of problems, as cracks were discovered in the support pillars, which had to be repaired even before the trains ever carried a single passenger. Is this new LRT going to be better for Edmonton than the previously existing Capital and Metro lines? Both the older lines provide good service, but are probably seriously underused, especially in more recent times. The trains, as well as the stations, have become go-to places for homeless people, especially during winter. Unfortunately, a lack of good shelters and easy access to the LRT, as well as some neglect by the city, has turned the LRT lines into dangerous places. Part of the system is underground in the downtown area, which seems to be most affected by the homelessness and the opioid crisis. While it is necessary to provide safe places for all Edmontonians, regardless of their housing situation or mental state, allowing the LRT to become a sort of shelter for people with addiction issues has not helped its ridership, as regular working people would rather use their cars or other means of transportation. If you believe the arguments of the city and TransEd, the design of the new LRT as low floor will save the Valley Line from a similar fate. All the stations are easily accessible, wide open, and well lit. Only time will tell if this is enough. To be fair, the city has increased the number of peace officers patrolling LRT stations in recent times. But the housing and opioid crisis have grown, and it remains to be seen if this problem can be brought under control. While some people have become desensitized to the stuff they see on the trains, others have simply stopped riding them. Will the Valley Line LRT save the system? It's hard to say. Right now, the line is new and quite a pleasure to ride. The trains run very smoothly and at a pretty good speed. Ridership seems to be high, probably in part because the trains fill a long-standing gap in Edmonton's transportation network. But a lot of people are worried, even those whose neighborhoods are now accessible by train. Will the trains bring more homeless people and associated problems into their area? Hopefully, those concerns will disappear as time goes on and the new line will be a long-term success. Barbara and I got to ride the new train a bit more than a week after it first entered service. The footage you see here was taken during that ride. We made it our weekend adventure and truly enjoyed it. We prefer riding the train over driving the car, especially in the winter, but due to the problems I mentioned before, we don't use it very often. The train, that serves our neighborhood is the original Metro line. Aside from riding the bicycle, it is the best way to reach downtown. However, besides neglected trains and a lack of security, there are a few other problems preventing us from riding them more often. One is cost. While we have the option of purchasing monthly passes, the number of rides we can possibly take doesn't make this feasible. A monthly pass for adults costs now $100. Even at the regular cash fare of $3.50, you'd have to take at least 29 rides to recover that. At the ARC card rate of $2.75 per ride, that goes up to 37 rides. So the monthly pass will basically only work for daily riders or people who can get the pass at a discount. Now let's compare the cost of the Edmonton LRT to that of driving a car for a short trip. We sometimes take the train to Southgate Mall. Since we have the ARC cards, the cost for a return trip for 2 people is $11. If we take the car, the 30-kilometer return trip costs about the same or even slightly less than one single ARC card ride in gas, with the rest of the costs being almost negligible because we already have the car. We're not immune to inflation, so even if we don't like the drive on wintry roads, often it is the more economical option when compared to transit. Advantages are that we never have to wait at the station, don't have to walk by loitering drug addicts that make a mess of the stations and consume illicit drugs in public, while security guards turn a blind eye, which is something that really makes me angry every time I see it. And of course, we don't have to share the train with people who are intoxicated and sleeping on the benches. Not to mention problems with sanitation. Edmonton's LRT has been abused as an emergency shelter for far too long, and it seems unlikely that's going to change just because of a new low-floor design. In my humble opinion, a grade separated system that avoids interference with existing road infrastructure and has some sort of barrier to keep people out, unless they paid their fare, would have made more sense. I often hear the argument that such a system would be cost prohibitive. To me, this only shows a lack of commitment. Are we building infrastructure for the next 5 years? Or are we ready to accept that the train we build today will still be around in 100 years? The service agreement between the City of Edmonton and TransEd is for 30 years. Seems reasonable, as it's hard to look that far ahead. Hopefully, I'll be proven wrong in the long run, and Edmonton's new LRT will thrive, serving not only those who are too poor to have other options, but a growing segment of the population. If you're in Edmonton, I would highly recommend a trip on the Valley Line LRT if you haven't done it yet. It's a great ride. You can thank me for the tip by liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so. Let me know your take on the state of the Edmonton LRT in the comments. I like to be cautiously optimistic, but you really can't ignore the frequent violent incidences on the transit system, and even the additional peace officers can only do so much. If you're in Edmonton, do you feel comfortable riding the LRT at night? Is the new line better than the old one? And is it because of the low floor concept? The view from the Tawatina Bridge is definitely worth the price of a ride. Personally, I like to see the LRT expansion continue and the problems dealt with in an effective manner. Well, I'll see you in the next video, and why not watch the one on the screen right now?
Whoa!